Hello guys, so Jerry speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM, episode 1722. Purple's podcast, episode number 105, which will be about Joseph Neville, educator and musician. We have to begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. What's that going to be about? Swabbins.
I'm Kerry Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour, and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show, Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation.
Wow.
I'm Kerry Stinson, and this is Purple Roads.
Okay. Wow.
Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Kerry Stinson, and as always, I'm thrilled you're here. This is going to be so much fun. You know, lately we've been doing a lot of musicians on Purple Road, and I thought I've got someone I really wanted to have on this show. I keep talking about Texas, and I keep talking about Fort Worth, and so I got a Fort Worth musician on this week.
Wow.
Who also was an
Oh, wow. That is Texas. Boy, everybody's continue anyway.
educator, and I think this is so important. Musicians that have worked with kids and have been able to influence kids. I know there's a lot of you on this show that want to get into the business, and this gentleman has helped kids understand the importance of music. So I'm so excited to welcome Joseph Neville. Joseph, how are you?
Okay.
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kerry?
I am so good. You know, we met recently, and you're part of a program with...
Wow. I did not know. Okay.
We're going to want to talk about, which is Amplify 817, and we will talk about that later. So I've been following your program, which we're good.
Kerry?
I am so good. You know, we met recently, and you're part of a program which we're going to want to talk about, which is Amplify 817, and we will talk about that later.
Okay.
So I've been following your music for a long time, but we finally got to meet in person. And
Wow, okay.
I am thrilled to have you here, and we're going to get into all aspects, you know, your teaching, but also... I think it's brilliant how you become a full-time musician and all the things you got going on.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a really fun chat, so I was excited to talk to you again today.
Well, let's start with music.
Okay.
Let's start with were you a kid and you just wanted to start playing? How did all that music get into your life?
Yeah, well, it's funny you asked that because it honestly does go as far back as when I was a young child watching Barney, and I have my parents have told me some stories about me, you know, holding myself up in my little, you know, pen, like bobbing my head to the Barney song. And so I suppose at an early age, there was a natural response to music and the song. And the older I got, that just continued to grow and grow. And so all throughout school, whether it was high school band or shows on television or songwriting, it definitely started to an early age.
Wow, okay.
And then how did it go from just enjoying it to I want to play, I want to be involved in it?
Yeah, so I can definitely think of some moments. I remember a field trip to the Bass Hall. Some moments when I was young that I was really moved by a concert or a musical event. And when I got old enough to where I could start taking lessons, it became real clear that I could also be on the other end of that as well. And so as much as I had enjoyed responding to music and enjoying it, I really wanted to see if there was something that I could create and try, and whether I'm playing someone else's music or writing my own music, I wanted to do something that would try and pull out of someone else what I felt like I had pulled out of me whenever I was, you know, a young kid and even today. And so, it was definitely started with high school bands.
Wow, okay.
When I was in college, I was exposed to a really cool singer-songwriter community in Tulsa. And so while I was getting my formal music education to teach music, I was also learning a little bit about songwriting. And then post-college, those two things kind of lived together for a while. And then eventually I transitioned to exclusively doing songwriting and playing guitar and playing, you know, all kinds of events and things like that. So that's kind of what led me to, like where I am in our conversation now.
Well, it's very interesting to me because who you're with and influences and where things direct you.
Yeah.
You know, where you obviously got into singer-songwriter, but then you also went to school to teach, and then where you are now.
Yeah.
So let's talk where the teaching came in.
Sure. I could tell you a list of names of people that I had as teachers when I was a young person, even in college, that changed my trajectory. And I had a great music teacher when I was in 6th grade, and that person, through her influence, just exposed me to a world that was a lot bigger than, kind of the small town I was growing up in. And she would take our band and our classes to all kinds of incredible concerts that, looking back on them, I'm honestly surprised she was able to get those events put together. And so it was honestly because of her influence that I saw a world that I really wanted to be a part of. And when I got older, I had an opportunity to study music, to get a scholarship, and I wanted to get a degree that had a skill set apart from just playing music. And so I picked music education. And honestly, a big part of why I picked that was because I thought, just like it's fun to write songs and have experiences where someone's being impacted by what you're playing, I really was excited about the idea of maybe I can do for someone else, for some other 6th grader, what this person was able to do for me, because it honestly changed my life for the better. And I really got excited about the possibility of doing that for other kids. And so that's what kind of nudged me along that educator trajectory for such a long time.
Wow.
So let's talk about that. When you got into the classroom, what is that like, teaching? And I know we talked about this the other day, which I think is fascinating. You did a lot of different. You did started 2nd grade, and then the higher. So you've done several different classes. Grades.
Yeah, the school that I taught at, we had a piano laboratory that was. It was ages 2nd grade all the way to high school, late high school. And so we had a laboratory with 25 electronic keyboards that were all wired together with headphones and microphones. So I would essentially teach group piano for 25 kids at a time, as young as 2nd grade and as old as 10th grade. And we would do music theory. We would do a little bit of songwriting. We do a lot of reading and technique and things like that. And so, yeah, it was definitely different. It showed me what kind of age groups I responded to better, because teaching a 2nd grader music is a lot different than teaching a 10th grader music. And so, regardless of what age they were, I hope, they were impacted by that. But it was really cool. And I definitely was exposed to a wide range of, kids on their musical journey, age-wise.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. And I've talked about this before. Obviously, I worked with a lot of those younger kids. And I think the coolest thing is that their imagination just runs wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we get older, it seems that I don't know if we're scared or what it is, but we kind of lose some of that. I don't know. I've never really figured out where that comes from, right? But when you're young, we just try it, right? We believe in purple dinosaurs and big yellow birds and all of those things. So what was it like when you're teaching piano to those kids that obviously they're not going to understand some of the theory that a 10th grader is going to understand? Yeah. But there's probably some other areas that you can have a lot of fun with those 2nd graders. Yeah,
absolutely. At that age, and, one of the fun things about studying music education is you learn the kind of impact pedagogy and music will have on a mind depending on its age. And so with little kids in particular, a lot of times they learn by experiencing. And, there's an analogy about trajectory. And you've heard of 2 boats sailing side by side. And if one boat gets just a few degrees off, it doesn't look like much initially, but over time, that difference will be, miles. And that was the way I looked at it with the little kids. Was I don't know if these little ones are going to necessarily understand all the names and the names of the scales and how to play them with the right fingerings, and I don't even know if they'll remember all the stuff that I told them. But I do think that at that age, if you're a 2nd grader, you're coming into a music classroom to be inspired, to kind of go into this other world. And like you just said, kind of literally in their minds, like they really are stepping into some magical place, And
Okay.
so that was something that I had in my mind whenever I would prepare for like young elementary classes. And that's what I hope is I'm not sure if they could tell you like the scales that I taught them, but I hope that just like a ship, with a few degrees change, like maybe there was something they experienced that they're inspired by that over time, and as they grow older, that moment or experience will push them on a path that will, whether they play professionally or just enjoy going to concerts or have a desire to impact other people in a positive way. I hope that takes place, and that was kind of my mindset going into teaching, younger kids. And I think that, you could, and from what we talked about the other day, I know you shared some really powerful stories of how, these young people who grew up and now are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, they could tell you stories about how the experience they had when they were really young with this imaginary purple dinosaur, that actually informs the way that they view the world today as adults, and obviously for the better. And I think that's a really special thing.
Well, we talked about this, and I've told this on this as well. I was looking for a job when I got into this. And as soon as I started seeing the impact that these kids had, I realized it was a responsibility.
Wow.
Right, that I had the opportunity, the ability to influence. And so obviously, that just motivated me even more to bring that purple dinosaur to life and push the messages of love and all the things that we did. But what I also didn't know was going to happen is how they were going to influence me. And these kids have absolutely influenced my whole life. And I'm curious, what about for you and those second graders that you were teaching? What did you get from them?
Yeah, 100%. Well, as I mentioned when we talked before, the year prior to my getting a teaching position, I was an aide for an pre-kindergarten classroom. And I remember I was sitting at a lunch table waiting for some parents to pick up their kids during like the half day pickup. And, I was a man like working in an elementary school. And mostly women profession. And, I remember one parent coming up to me and she was joking because we had a nice rapport and some relationship built up at this point. And, he was he was sad that he had to leave because we were like, playing with blocks or something. And she jokingly grabbed him, picked him up, and as she was leaving, she said, he sees you more than he sees his dad. And she said that, as a joke, but it really kind of stuck with me and reminded me that, that kid might not remember who I am 10, 20 years from now, but I hope that, with this time that he's spending with an adult person, he's seeing, what it looks like to, feel loved, to have a healthy relationship, to see like a kind presence in their world. And that obviously, whether you're spending 5 hours or 8 hours a day with the kid or just 1 hour during a class period, you have a chance to set an example for what life could be like and the kind of joy and love you can experience. And when you see, because when I was teaching at the charter school, I would see sometimes 400-500 kids a day. Wow. And, all those kids have different stories, different backgrounds and experiences. And many times, unfortunately, they're not necessarily in a home life or in a situation where they're seeing positivity, where they're seeing love, where they're seeing encouragement, someone telling them to reach higher and to try harder and to explore things that, excite you. And so, I'm honestly glad I did that job. Because I think it helped me go into that formal teaching position with a sense of vision and mission, responsibility. I think is what you said. Like, if I have an hour with this young person, what are they going to leave with? Not just the learning scales and how to read music, but did they see someone who they could maybe model themselves after, like when they grow up? And if they don't have a better example at home or otherwise, did I provide for them a good example of what, the kind of adult they could be? And that was honestly something I don't think I was kind of surprised by the intensity of that when I got into teaching, just because you start building relationships and you start seeing these kids. And realizing what their stories are. And the more you learn about that, I think the heavier the weight of that gets of, man, I have a responsibility, and I'm sure as Barney, you could think about that, like moments where maybe you feel tired or you think of, you've done 5 events in a day and, but there's these kids that need to see, something that you have to show them. So
it's so
yeah, it was.
Yeah, exactly. The point is too, Joseph and Carrie, that, and I hate to say this too, that I was a huge Barney fanatic. I never heard of NFI 817 before, and in my life. So, to be honest with you, because like I said, I haven't said it earlier in the episode of LJPCBM. So to be honest, so So anyway, it was a huge influence on Joseph to be inspired to be a Texan, because I never heard of him saying like be an educator or a musician before. So that was surprising, just how much you're gonna say in any way. So what I'm trying to tell Joseph here, if he's watching this LJPCBM episode right now, I'm saying that he's a good educator and musician, but I never knew he was a huge Barney fan when he was a kid. I'm surprised. Continue on.
That it's so funny you say that, because I've talked about that, because I could never be tired. I could never be sad. I could because they didn't come to see me, right? They came to see Barney, and so that mentality was in my head the whole time. But it came from those early days, right? When you first going in and you realize when you show up at a for me, birthday party, wow, it's important. And so I got to think it's the same thing for a teacher, right? You have that, you get teacher, Mr. Neville can't be, down that day or something, because you got 5.
It's probably Mr. Rogers and me. Oh, I'm sorry, Carrie, continue on.
100 kids you're teaching to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah. The way I looked at it was, if you're a Barney, if you're a teacher, you're gonna have hundreds, and in some cases tens of thousands of opportunities to interact with a kid. But for sometimes these kids, from the kid's perspective, they get this 1 hour with you or this one opportunity to meet you. And I think sometimes when you get to interact with so many people, you sometimes take for granted the significance of a single interaction can be. And so, and I still think about that now, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore. If there's someone who is having an experience, or if there's someone who felt moved by, whether it was a lesson in the classroom or a concert or something, even if I'm tired or if I feel off, like reminding myself that this is something that I think I'm supposed to steward well. And so I should be generous with my time. I'm supposed to steward.
My mouth is bothering me. Okay, I'll be right back. I need to get some drink. Stand by. Bad folks, sorry about that. I have to get some water and talk my stepdad for a bit. Let's continue up top, shall we? So we got for us.
Off, like reminding myself that this or something.
I can't hear what he's saying.
Or if there's someone who felt moved by, and I still think about that now, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore. If there's someone who is having an experience, or if there's someone who felt moved by, whether it was a lesson in the classroom or a concert or something. Even if I'm tired or if I feel off, like reminding myself that this is something that I think I'm supposed to steward well. And so I should be generous with my time and with my energy. And obviously those things will pay dividends. And again, like I said at the beginning, I feel like the life that I live is a product of someone, doing that for me, someone being on when they were having a rough day, someone making a point to, be generous with their time and energy, even if I was just another kid in a classroom to them,
Right.
Okay.
No, I totally get that. And obviously I have mentors from school, my old high school coach and those type of people.
Yeah.
Really influenced me in what I was doing. So I think that's great. It's funny you were saying this. I was thinking as you were talking that we talked the other day about people coming to you after your concerts, and a song specifically touched them.
Wow.
Yeah.
don't you think those early days of teaching and kids and all of that stuff really gets you to appreciate those things? And when people take the time to come to you and say, oh my gosh, your song meant something?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
What do you say?
It meant something?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's easy to be envious when you're in entertainment because you have so many colleagues doing so many incredible things. And there are some times where I wonder, like, man, I spent 4 years teaching. I wonder what would happen or what would have happened had I spent those 4 years like playing. And honestly, when I look back on the story, I think that spending so much time with people like in the classroom, it makes me honestly kind of hungry for those opportunities. So when someone does come up to me, whether it's a student or a person who is moved by song, like we talked about, I get really excited, and I think about conversations I get to have with kids in a classroom, and even though I'm not there anymore, there's someone at this bar, this restaurant, or this event that obviously was moved by something, and here's a chance to emphasize that and add to that, and hopefully make it something that is like truly impactful for them. So I'm thankful. I think that the time as a teacher definitely ties into the attitude I try to carry, playing for people and talking to them after the show.
Excuse me.
Well, in that journey, I think being well-rounded like you've been from school and then teaching and now what you're doing, it probably makes you appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to get into the music part. I love this story that's coming up. I had the preview because I got to talk to him the other day, but I love this. And we have so many people that watch this show who want to be, a body performer or a voice actor or a musician, tons of them. And you really took a leap of faith when you had a solid career going, but the singer-songwriter thing and getting your stories out was important to you. And so you went for it, which is it's hard to do. And you've found success, and it continues to grow and grow and grow. So I'd love if you kind of tell the story about taking this next journey.
Yeah, I can't remember the first time I heard this or who told it to me. Probably some great teacher, But I remember someone drawing on a whiteboard. It was to me. Probably some great teacher, But I remember someone drawing on a whiteboard. It was it was three circles in the outer circle, and I don't think we talked about this at the coffee shop, but this is definitely the foundation of the what I had shared with you. If you think of three circles, the outer circle is the what. So it's being Barney, being a body performer, being a singer-songwriter, being a teacher. The middle circle is the how. So how do you do that? Do I take acting classes so I get a degree? Do I go to these open mics? Do I take singing lessons? But the smaller, the most innermost circle is the why. And I think if you can really identify and write out a thorough sense of like, well, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to get a degree and become a teacher? Or why do I want to take classes and become a body performer? I think that you're setting yourself up for success if you do that. And you're really identifying if it's something that you truly do want to do. Okay. And I was fortunate enough to have that in the back of my mind as I was exploring the singer-songwriter thing. And so fast forward into a couple of years of teaching, I remember at this point I was teaching full-time and I was writing songs and performing part-time, so traveling on the weekends and doing house shows and small things like that. And I was writing songs that people seemed to respond to, and it was by no means like lucrative or fame earning, but I remember one show in particular. I was doing this house concert in Tulsa, and I'd written a song for myself about some bitterness and negativity I was experiencing towards other people, and I played that song for this group of, I think it was really full. It was like 100 people at this house concert, which was incredible. Okay. But this older gentleman came up to me, and he told me a story about his daughter getting stood up at the aisle, and the rage you would feel towards this young man who kind of uprooted their family's trajectory. And he had red in his eyes and was kind of crying as he was telling me how he felt like the song I had played encouraged him to let go of that person, you know. And like I shared with you at the coffee shop, I remember I think I was 23, 22 when that happened.
Wow.
And I just was so humbled because I'm not like necessarily like the wisest person. I'm not a counselor. Like this guy, you know, has lived my life probably 3 times. And under normal circumstances, he and I would not have anything really to have in common. And he would have no reason to take something I would have to say seriously. But during a concert, a song that I worked really hard on had this impact that made him come to a place where I think he was primed for some healing and for some growth and for some peace.
Okay.
And when I drove back from that concert, you know, the long drive from Tulsa to Fort Worth, I remember just thinking in my mind that even if I never make a full-time living doing that, or if I get to play for a crowd bigger than 100 people, that experience I had was something that I believe is sacred and significant and meaningful. And I want that to be the thing that I chase, you know? So instead of trying to work myself up about, am I playing for more people? Am I making more money? I'm going to try and make sure that stays at the center circle, you know, like, am I writing songs for people that I believe need them, that are honest and well written? And am I creating opportunities to play those songs for people? And, you know, that obviously is going to look different depending on what your goals are. But I think that helps, that why and that sense of purpose, I think helps get you through, you know, it's been a long year. There's not a lot of work. I've gotten a lot of no's, you know, but if you have a really solid, good why, I think it will propel you and give you endurance to, you know, suffer through some of those more difficult things, as I'm sure you can attest to, you know.
Yeah, and I love that. You know, what I talk about on here a lot is everyone that's ever been on this show is authentic. And they don't come on, they didn't get into this industry, they didn't do it just to be famous, right? It's exactly what you're talking about. That's where the gold is to me, right? You touched a stranger by just putting your song out there. And obviously, you know, I've seen that with the power of Barney. So I just think that's so cool. And I think that's really where the success comes in. You know, obviously we all have to make money and we have to do those things, but man, there's nothing that replaces that. If you don't mind telling the story about, continuing on that, about your sister, when you were talking about just going full on. And I love this part of the story.
Sure. You know, I have a great family. It's funny because people always, I remember when I first started, people would say like, well, what do your parents think about this? And they would assume like they're like worried. And, you know, both my parents really overcame a lot when they were young. And so just the fact that their kids are all grown and like have full bellies, I think they're just like, we've won, like we've done it. They all survived. Wow. And so my parents have always been people who encouraged me to pursue the things that I was passionate about. They never once, I don't think I could think of a time where they pushed me to make a decision based off what was safe or conservative. You know, they were always telling me to work hard and to strive towards things that I was passionate about. And I really am thankful for that because I know a lot of people didn't have that when they were growing up. And so that was definitely an advantage. And my siblings were the same. So yeah, when I was a full-time school teacher, I was kind of plotting my exit, thinking about, okay, I really want to do more singing, more songwriting. How do I do that? And I was obviously like, I had really established myself in a good career. I was in a good town, you know, I was moving and grooving, and I had some consistency and was making money. And so changing obviously like required, you know, sacrificing a lot of that consistency or familiarity. And so I essentially was thinking about quitting my job and breaking my lease and then kind of seeing what would go from there, you know, the great unknown, going into the great unknown. And I was really panicking about it, really nervous about it, and wasn't sure if I was able or willing to like really pull the trigger on that. And I was sitting at home, and I was sitting at my sister's home, we were hanging out, and I was just telling her about these feelings I was having and these ideas that I had about trying to pursue songwriting full time. And she just listened to everything I had to say, and then she just told me, because when I first moved to Texas, she let me live with her for a few months while I found a job and found an apartment. And she just told me, she said, Joe, like the worst thing that can happen is we either don't like it or, it doesn't work out. And then you could come live with us again, find a new job, find an apartment, and then you're essentially back where you started. And when she said that to me, so matter of fact, it really took this pressure off me of like, oh, that's the worst case scenario. That's really not that bad. And so it gave me a strong push and a strong sense of like, I definitely should do this. And I know that's everyone's story is different. And so it's not necessarily great advice for someone who might have children or, different things like that. But for my situation, it was a pretty easy decision when my sister helped kind of reframe that for me. So yeah, I'm really thankful for them.
Well, I think it's great advice because we don't want to have regrets in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. And she's exactly right. You could have gone back and you'd have a career. I mean, you'd be able to get a job. You'd be able to do all those things, but you don't ever have to say, well, why didn't I, try? And obviously I had that moment with a Big Purple Dinosaur. I didn't know what in the world I was doing. And, I had to quit a job and give it a shot. And that's a common story, but a lot of people, are on that ledge and they don't go. And then later down the line, they regret, I wish I would have tried, or I wish I would have tried. So and the other part of that is you can always still try. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. I've seen people, I've brushed shoulders with some people who have crazy stories about the amount of risks that they took. And sometimes it paid off, sometimes it didn't. But I've never met an older person who lived a life of adventure and risk and told me that they wish they would have done things more conservatively. I've never once had that conversation, but I've certainly had conversations with people who told me, about all these things that they had thought about doing or thought about trying. And I often say this to people as like the price of admission. If you want to live a life that's fun and fulfilling, you're gonna have to take on a little bit of stress, a little bit of risk, and you're gonna have to roll the dice and be willing to lean into like the unknown.
Yeah.
And I've learned to be pretty warm to that. So I think if we could all get a little more comfortable with trying things that are uncomfortable, I think if we could all get a little more comfortable with trying things that are uncomfortable, with going into things that we don't know a whole lot about, I think we'd be surprised with how great we would be enjoying ourselves.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that you just hit it with the word uncomfortable. I think that is such a great place to be. It's a hard place to be in, but it's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's great.
And the other part of your story that I love about this, and I think so important, is that, okay, you decided to take that risk, but then you went through it. And you were telling me that you had a quota, right, of emails that you were writing out to get jobs, to get your music out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I didn't have an apartment, so I was living out of my car for a year and a half almost, and had a suitcase with clothes in it, and had my backpack with all my work stuff in it, so a notebook and a laptop. And so, basically, I would be driving up and down I-35 a lot, like all the way up to Wichita, Kansas, all the way down to Austin. I would play at all these places.
Oh my God, Wichita, Kansas. That's where Jim Larry was originally born at. Tijuana.
Had already had relationships with, and then every now and then I would go out of town and find opportunities to play for some new people, some new cities. And so basically, I would spend time every single day at a coffee shop, and I would work on who am I staying with, for the next several weeks. And that calendar was red, I remember, and so I would make sure I had that lined up, so I was never stressing about like tomorrow night. I know where I'm staying. And then yellow was the calendar for where I'm playing, and it got easier the more I did it because you would build relationships with people and with venues that wanted to have you back. But I remember I would Google whatever city I was going to. I would Google live music or bar or restaurant or venue, house concert, whatever. And whatever were the top results, I would take 15 of those. I would get 15 emails, and every single day I told myself I have to send at least 15 emails to try and make sure that I have my calendar booked out. And so got very comfortable with no and got very comfortable with no response. But that was the thing I had control of. I can't control if people say yes or say no, but I can control if I'm putting in the work and if I'm emailing. And so, every single day, 15 emails. And if I didn't get any responses, I could at least say that I did my part, so.
Okay.
It's interesting. We talk about hearing no a lot, and we don't talk about the no response. And the no response happens a bunch.
Oh yeah.
It happens more these days than it used to. And I have dealt with that a lot. What is that like for you when you start realizing I'm just not going to hear back?
Yeah. Well, I think it's healthy. I think it's good advice to just learn to get comfortable with that. And even if you're the most talented person in the world, I think you're still going to get no. And so,
it happened to me several times when I get a response that is making no. Well, in 2024, I have a situation from somebody, which I won't explain, but because of an Oogie base. I've been lonely, but I'm over it now, but which I will not explain in the reaction video, but it is difficult for me to talk about it. But it's over now. Let's continue on.
I think one important thing is to learn to not take it so personally. You have to learn to be resilient through that. And honestly, maybe this is bad advice. I'm curious what your thoughts are, but I'll keep bugging people until they give me a no. So if you're getting a no response, that's an invitation to ask again, in my opinion. So I would suggest if it's an opportunity you're passionate about or you really do want to pursue, and you don't get a response, follow up. I normally follow up normally 4 days to 7 days. Definitely 7 days. If they don't respond,
7 days a week. You do want him?
I'll ask again, and normally they'll respond, and not and there are many times I can think back where because I did follow up and because I did ask multiple times, they eventually saw that as a sign of legitimacy or seriousness or whatever you want to call it, and a lot of places would have me play somewhere because I asked multiple times. And so obviously if someone says no, you want to politely and respectfully, I appreciate you considering me, and maybe another time, however you want to word that. But I think you got to get comfortable with no and get comfortable with no response.
And sometimes you get no response, sometimes you get yes responses. And one episode of Sesame Street I heard about this years ago. Sometimes I heard about it excuse me. Well, sometimes I get no, sometimes I get yes. And years ago, I heard about it on YouTube, but it was years ago. I was watching a Sesame Street episode about Oscar saying about saying some things like yes day, a National Grouch holiday, thinking about yes day, and then Dave was like, you are still unspeakable, and I was like, yeah, so it was like, ooh, David, oh my god, it was so hilarious. But I was watching that one episode on YouTube, I'm not sure what it was on YouTube. It was on a YouTube channel called Tiny Dancer at the time. My good friend Jeremy Mines, better with Sesame Maniacs YouTube channel name at the time. It was probably years ago that I saw that YouTube channel name. I subscribed to that channel and I became friends with Jeremy Main, and his girlfriend was known as Tiny Dancer at the time. I met Jeremy Main in 2014, but then I realized that it was a good friend of mine to know him with. He was a heavy metal dude like I am, he was good friends with me. He was like yes, no, maybe, I don't know, but it was a great friend, So there you go. Let's continue on.
Don't be afraid to be persistent, if you're not getting a direct response.
We've had several guests on this show that we've gone through that.
Wow.
Be very open and honest about that.
Yeah.
Whether it was going through an agent, whether it was the email was missed or whatever. And then we've had a couple that we got on a year later. That
Wow.
We started over a year, and it was different things that happened.
Yeah.
Whether they were just busy or they missed the email. People these days, we just sometimes buzz through and they didn't read it, or they didn't watch a link or whatever. And it's a very amusing. I had one who was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be on this show." And his agent had turned us down initially. And then however we got back around, they were like, "Oh my God, he can't wait to be on your show." And I was like, "Did you see our earlier email?"
I have some emails. I mean, years ago, during COVID, there's an email from my mom to PBS NewsHour and thinking, no, we can't go with you to PBS NewsHour headquarters because, we can't visit the PBS NewsHour. I can't speak today. We can't visit PBS NewsHour headquarters in 2023 because of COVID. Because we can't let you visit. There's a new building coming around until 2024, and they let you visit again. They allow visitors again. But so it's no surprise for me. And that's happening during my sequel in the movie. That's back in production in June 2024, and it's been production and released September 2024 on both my channels. Go check it out on YouTube, on my LJPCBM channel and Appalachian 94 channel, so you won't miss it out. So, yeah. And there's another email that I have to send, but it's from 2016, one of the worst years ever, and it's from Marshall Brown, to be honest with you. Yeah, he was trying to say things like, I won't talk about, one thing I won't say at all costs, and it was probably say, I'm no longer associated with you, blah, 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 none of that. And another for 2017, it was probably the worst thing he ever said things to me. If I see you in person or near me, I'll call the police. First of all, I'm very scared, and two, I'm autistic, and you not calling the police on me. So, why bother? I'm your friend, Marshall, if you're watching this. But anyway, because it's a scary thing. I don't want you to call the police on me. So yeah, that's a no-no. And I want you to see me in time for me to make this film work. If you don't, and another no I want to see from Remix is from Remix, okay? And he told me this in 2016, saying that, please cancel your film. I'm like, are you kidding me? Shut up. Don't cancel. I still want to postpone my film until further notice. Don't make me cancel the film. I spot to Remix, this is not happening. I want to maybe postpone the film till another date. Not cancel the film, but that's another issue I had with Remix at the time, back in 2016. And there's another issue I had years ago, but I won't say much in the LJPCBM episode, but this is another time. But it's long story short, but it's one of the worst years in 2016, but it will make more sense. Anyway, let's continue on before I get sober. Anyway.
But it really doesn't matter, right? And the ones that don't, and it's got to be the same thing for you. It can never happen unless you ask.
Exactly. Yeah.
It never happened unless you ask, and you going into whatever you're going through, that you're never going to hear yes all the time. And I told you my story that, I was told that I looked like I had the Bernie job right off the bat, and then she just never called me back. I'll call you back, and she never called me back. And I had to go, that was my introduction into the industry.
And there's another thing too. If you're talking Bernie's, Carrie. One time I was supposed to be at college at a thing called SCAD, and then my high school classmates told me, teachers told me, no, you can't go to SCAD because it costs money. And two, you can't afford that. I'm like, seriously, teachers at high school, I don't go to college like that. I love to go to college there, scuba go. I want to go to college nearby Skad and Savannah. Not go to college at the thing called Wolf Ridge, which we'll get to that in a little bit. But I usually think I want to be a filmmaker, a technician, and of course a rock musician, things like that, as an actor and producer and other things. But it was a long story, but I loved doing those things, and Progressibility Support Services and other things told me this. It was Lisa Jones who said to me, this, and I quote, I was going to be a gospel singer, and I couldn't. And I'm like, try out, you know? You want to be that gospel singer so bad? Well, you need to, you know? And I was like, no, I can't, you know, because I want to do that so badly, you know? And there's another thing, too, because and then there's another thing that pestered me in 2015 about this one person, and it was Libby Jeffers, with my stepmom Libby, she's watching this anyway. And there's some job coaches who told me, I said that it was one job coach. I was going to do projects that day, but there's some good job coaches who passed me who said this. I talked to Dawn Baker the other day, and she said that Luke we're going to be who you want to be. I'm like, shut up, come on. But anyway, the reason why I talked about Dawn Baker many times before, Dawn Baker's a rip-off of Gwen Eiffel. She's not a news reporter. She's basically a stupid anchor woman that has to be ripped off, get out of WTLC forever. I'm sorry, but that's not my thing. But back to my point. I go to college at Warren Springs, nearby Warren Springs, Georgia. And I was basically homesick, to be honest with you, because I've never been that homesick in my life in 2016. That was a difficult year. I'm sorry, but it was a devilish year. And I hate that year at all costs. So I went to 3 different jobs that year, that 2017 year. One was for Kingdom Design, and the other two in 2018 and 2019 were, respectively, David AAA and Summer's Aqua. The rest is history. So I saved my money, lived with it, and YouTube was the rest of history because I had got monetized from MHL. What do you want to know? Anyways, let's continue on.
Why isn't she calling? She said she was going to call.
Yeah.
And she became a very good friend of mine. But it's just different things that happen. And I love hearing your stories of this and how you push through.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm curious. So you put those...
Hold on. Exactly what Joe's point of view. Let's continue on.
Your stories of this and how you push through.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So you put those 15 emails out. How many would you get yes?
Oh, goodness gracious. It fluctuated. But if I were to pick an average, I would say I would get a response, probably one out of 15, honestly. And normally, if it was a response, it was saying, "Hey, we'd like to have you. Like, what dates are you available?" You know. So a lot of no responses. And even in the no responses, I would keep those emails logged. And when I was back in town, I would email them again. "Hey, I'm back in town this date. Would love to come play your space, your venue, whatever." And so on average, probably one response out of 15 was the numbers I was running. And over time, fortunately, I think those, because you learn in those things, in all the no's, you learn if there's anything you can do to improve. Am I wording this email well? Am I adding the right content, the right links for them to get an idea of what I'm doing? And so I think that over time you also get better at asking and how to ask well, and how to reach out to people. Cold calling, it's kind of a sad way to say it, but yeah. I think 1 out of 15 is probably an accurate number.
But also, right, your career's growing, right? The more you're playing, right, and you're getting a following, and you're putting out new music, and you're doing all that. So
yeah,
you're not the same artist you were, 2 months ago when you're.
That's a great point. Yeah. So that's a really good point, because every time I would play somewhere, and sometimes I would get really cool opportunities where there was, I can think of one. There was this group in Dallas called Tacos and Tunes, and they would have these huge shows at these really cool locations, and they would have a professional videography team come in and take video and lots of photos. And I got booked to do that, which was awesome. And by the way, I think even for that, it was a pretty long time between my initial email and like actually getting to do it. And when I finally did get to do it, I got this great package of content with a video and lots of great photos. And those were things that I used, when I started reaching out to other places. And so that kind of, it's like any business, I guess, you build on top of small successes, and, over time you allow the, one win, one yes to lead to hopefully another win and another yes. And so, I think I never really thought about that way.
What keeps you going in a year and a half? I mean, are there times you're like, okay, it's time to go back, or?
Man, no. In fact, I just got done, yesterday I drove back into town. I did a really great weekend in a little place in East Texas called Emerald Bay. And it's mostly an older community. And some friends of mine booked me to come out and play in this backyard. And there was probably 90 people there. And it's a gated community built around a golf course and lots of golfers. And so it's real hot. And, everyone started showing up in their golf carts, like parking on this big lawn. And I played for 2.5 hours, which is a long, like no breaks.
Wow. That's a long time.
It's a long time. It's a long time with no breaks. You do a 4-hour set a lot of times, but you often will get multiple breaks in that. But we were just having a good time, and didn't want to stop. And I was playing, a lot of songs that I'd written, and I'm thankful for that. But I also played a lot of James Taylor and some songs that I knew that they would be familiar with. And I'll send you a picture when we're done talking. But just lots of people hanging out, holding hands, having a sense of reprieve. It's been a difficult couple of years, and I think people are thirstier now than they've ever been for community and for the kind of community that art can facilitate. And so, man, I remember looking out at those golf carts. It sounds silly, but and seeing those people out there holding hands and getting red-eyed, and thinking to myself, like, this is a service, and this is something that I can offer these people who, have completely different stories, completely different backgrounds, and hopefully it leads to something good for them. But the more I do it, the more sold out I think I get. So I'm already winning. In my mind, I'm already a huge success, just because I think I get to do that on a regular basis, and I'm sure you can relate. Anybody who does this kind of stuff, there are nights where it feels like work, and there are nights where it just feels like you're on top of the world.
Yeah.
And
I see what's going.
I try to remind myself that regardless of how I feel, there's, even if it's one person, like there's someone here who maybe hearing that James Taylor song, like, gives them a sense of comfort, solace, and maybe a song that I wrote, hearing that James Taylor song, like, gives them a sense of comfort, solace, and maybe a song that I wrote motivates them to forgive someone or to ask for forgiveness. And those are things that I couldn't imagine doing something different than that, And so obviously, like, I love to see it grow, and I love to play for big crowds, but like I said earlier, I think a real key to mental health and to meaningful success is having that why continue to be your compass and your North Star. So, like, 2 nights ago, I played for these wonderful people in this little community, and that was something that, even if that's my ceiling, even if I only did that for the rest of my life, I feel like that's a life well spent. And so that makes me just want to do it more and more and more, and to continue to grow it and grow it more and more. So, yeah, I don't think there's any big changes as far as career. I think I found the thing that I feel sense of calling and purpose in, and I just want to continue to dive, into that as much as I can.
I love it. I absolutely love it. On this show, we always talk about your purple road, finding your purple road. I think we have, right? Circle that why.
Yeah.
Get that little circle, put the why in there, and answer that question. One of the things, the other thing I want to talk about, I told you I went to music school, and one of the trickiest parts to it, and you're figuring your way through it, is playing original music and playing cover music, and doing that, right? And it's tough because everyone wants to hear James Taylor, but you also want to get your music out. How have you been able to? I know you've told me you've been able to turn that needle a little bit toward playing more and more of your music. Yeah,
sure. So that needle you're talking about is basically, when I look at my taxes, when I look at my statements, essentially 70% of my income comes from acting as a hired entertainer. So a private event or a venue will book me to come out and do, 4 hours, 3 hours of live music, and normally they want something specific like country or 70s singer-songwriter. And so I have a nice bank of songs that are written by Merle Haggard, James Taylor, Carly Simon, Tom Petty, all these people that I really love. And I make a living doing that, and then 30% of my income comes from doing the art that I've created and written on my own. So that's streaming revenue, Patreon revenue, doing concerts. So that's streaming revenue, Patreon revenue, doing concerts where it's exclusively original music, selling stickers and T-shirts and things like that. And so over time, I've seen that I've gotten to do more and more things as an artist and have had to do less and less as a hired entertainer. And so that's kind of a metric that I used to see if am I making the right shifts and tweaks to the way I'm creating and booking, and that helps me kind of keep an eye on, because sometimes it gets discouraging and like you said, you get tired and it feels like work. But if I know that each year I'm moving more and more into full-time artistry and not necessarily full-time, entertainment, that's a metric that I think has become a healthy one for if I'm moving in the right direction or not. And to be honest, there's a friend in town, Bubba Bellin, a really great songwriter, really great steel guitar player. And we were hanging out, and I was kind of telling him how I was feeling a little burnt out, playing all these restaurants, all these bars and long sets and people yelling out songs I don't know how to play. And he just reminded me, he listed off all these names of, he said Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, all these famous musicians. They spent years playing honky tonks and dance halls, playing other people's music. And he said every single time that you play a cover, you're learning what a good song sounds like. And every time you play, maybe because I'll do originals at restaurants and bars and things like that. And that's often how I make new friends and fans that will come to the more artistic shows. And I love the way that those play off of each other. But, every time I play a James Taylor song and someone starts crying or says, "Oh, that's my favorite song," I'm learning. I'm thinking and learning. What is it about that? What is?
Come right back. I'm back, folks. Sorry about that. I was about to do something real fast for food to eat. Just a reminder, after this episode of LJPCBM, there will be a Dairy Time episode for you guys out there. So that's coming up next, right after this LJPCBM episode. Let's continue where we left off, shall we? So we got for us.
What is it about that song that this person has such a connection with? What can I learn from these songs? And so I try to look at it that way, and I think it's helped me to take more joy in those that part of it. But yeah, I love doing both of them. But down the road, I see myself doing art full time and performing the songs that I've written full time. And that would be that's the next mountain. They say the top of one mountain is the bottom of another, and there's a long time where being a full-time musician was a complete dream to me, and now that that's become kind of the floor, I think when I look forward, I think, oh man, if I could just do original music, and not have to play these 4-hour bar gigs, that would be a wild dream. And but I've seen one dream come true, and so why wouldn't another? And so just trying to continue to move down that path.
Well, and just believing, right?
Yeah.
You just gotta. It sounds like you've already believed you're gonna be there, and.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I do. I believe it.
I don't think there's any question. I can tell that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to talk about Amplify 817.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a connection to that too. The Fort Worth Public Library Foundation is very near and dear to my heart because my wife is the CEO of it.
Oh wow! Wow. Okay.
Also, the Fort Worth Library. I know Teresa Davis and Manya Shore, and
yep.
To me, it's such an incredible program. The second Andrea had told me about it, I was like, oh my goodness gracious, boy, do we need this. Fort Worth is such a talented city. You and I have had this discussion. And this is a program that gives back to musicians and really lets you get your music out there. So can you explain a little bit about what Amplify 817 is?
Yeah, I'll do my best. And honestly, we could talk about this for an entire hour. But
I tried to give at least 15 minutes that we could talk about this.
I love it so much. So yeah, Amplify 817 is a part of I believe it's the Visit Fort Worth. It's essentially a movement of Fort Worth creatives. Obviously, it's a part of the Fort Worth Library Foundation. It's really their program. It's an attempt to identify, highlight, and empower local musicians in the city of Fort Worth because there's so much incredible talent here. And when you look at all the things that are happening in Fort Worth with all the growth and people moving here, there already was such a great and strong music culture. And now that the city has grown, that culture has just been stoked and continue to grow. And so Amplify 817 basically is trying to make sure that the city is aware of all the incredible, Fort Worth homegrown music that exists. And so I've benefited greatly from them. They do all kinds of stuff. The two of the things I can think of is they have the Amplify 817 online streaming service. And so they have all of these curated artists that are based out of Fort Worth that you can listen to for free if you have a library card, which is
Time, is it hard? We love whoever that was. Look, I can't remember the lyrics in the library card song from Arthur. Continue on, anyway.
a great way for someone who's new to the city or just lived here and you want to get more involved, more informed. Amplify 817 gives you a streaming service to hear everyone that, not everyone, but a large part of the music culture here. And then they also do a lot of events. They did a showcase, and they still are doing a showcase. It's the third Sunday of every month. They'll do a showcase at Tulips where they do a show featuring but featuring a Fort Worth local artist. And the cool thing about that is, I got to do one of those, and it was a packed room at one of my favorite venues, and it was so soul filling for me because they asked me intentionally. They said we're not hiring you to do a bunch of covers, like to play for a background music. Like we want to showcase the songs you've written, the art you've created. That's what Amplify 817 is about. And they gave me a platform to show my songs and to, play what I'd written for a really incredible group of people. And, Teresa Davis at this point, it feels like a giant community, kind of like family. And so there's just always new things going on with how do we get the rest of the world to see what's happening here in Fort Worth. And I feel so thankful to be a part of it. And it's something that I don't think exists in many other cities. And
yeah, exactly.
We talked about this briefly when we met, but when I lived out of my car, honestly, I was really thinking about, do I want to uproot and plant roots in a new city? Like I have friends in Nashville who are doing well, friends in LA who are doing well, friends in New York and even Sydney, Nova Scotia, all these places. And the more I traveled and went to these cities, the more I really was able to see how great of a culture exists in Fort Worth. Even though Fort Worth isn't as big or have necessarily all the same resources or connections these other places have, there's something really special and unique happening in Fort Worth, and I really, really wanted to be a part of it. So when I started to make enough money to sign a lease, I knew that Fort Worth was the place I wanted to do it, and Amplify 817 is a huge, huge part of why there's been such a growth in the music culture here in Fort Worth.
Wow.
It's so cool because they try to get you all paid.
Yeah, they do. Oh, yeah.
There's a huge part of it right there. It's
Wow.
like Spotify for Fort Worth, which I think is so cool. As you mentioned, the library card. That's all you need is a library card.
Yeah. It's like, for example, and I was going to mention too, having fun isn't hard when you got yourself a library card. That's it. Okay. Now I got it now. Let's continue on.
You know, I love that the library is finding other ways, right? It's not the importance of books, absolutely. But the library is finding other ways, right? It's not the importance of books, absolutely. But doing the music as well, I think, is so cool.
Yeah.
And it is one of the most, we know the importance of community and diversity, and boy, all the artists. I mean, there's every type of, you've got your country, your singer-songwriter, and hip-hop, and rap, and jazz.
Yeah, electronic music, DJs, indie band.
Heavy metal. Don't forget about heavy metal, classic rock. Yeah, that type of thing. Continue on.
It's rock and roll bands. It's every genre you think of, there's someone in Fort Worth doing it. And I mentioned this, one of my favorite things about that is, in Atlanta and LA, in a lot of these music cities, there's like a sound. Like people will talk to you about the LA sound or the Nashville sound. Mm-hmm. And there's often, the cities are so big that, genres will have their kind of own cultures and their own groups of people that empower each other and encourage each other. And then if you're not in that group, you kind of, I need to find like this other group that does my kind of music. And one of the really beautiful things about Fort Worth is, we all are in the same group, and so you'll see a hip hop artist come to someone's singer-songwriter show, and sit down and have a drink and listen. And then you'll see like singer-songwriters show up to someone's DJ set or someone's rock show or someone's hip hop show. And so,
which I'm not a huge fan of hip hop. Sorry, continue on.
I get really encouraged seeing that is, you go to these here Fort Worth mixers or these Amplify 817 events, and no matter who's performing, you're going to see a real diverse arrangement of people who are doing all kinds of different expressions of art and music. And that's something that I think makes Fort Worth unique. And, in fact, I had someone ask me, someone who is a friend of mine in Nashville was asking me, like, well, what's the scene in Fort Worth?
Hold on, I can't hear a thing. Hang on.
Someone who is a friend of mine in Nashville was asking me, like, well, what's the scene in Fort Worth? Like, what's the Fort Worth sound? And I said, there's really not a Fort Worth sound. And that's our identity, is that there's a real rich diversity of music, and people make art in Fort Worth, and everyone understands that if one of us does well, it's better for the rest of us, So if Lou Charles does great, if It's Ernie does well, if Yokio, the DJ duo, does well, like that's going to help my career, And I think that attitude is shared by all the musicians of Fort Worth, and that's something that I really all the musicians of Fort Worth, and that's something that I really am glad I get to be a part of.
I have been to a few of the performances, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, the different artists are amazing. Amplify, the artists is just, they're all so dang talented. And you just sit there and go, how in the world do not more people know about this artist? And I know they're adding all the time that more people know about this artist. And I know they're adding all the time. I know they add several times a year. They add 4 or 5 new artists by 817.
I see them posting on Instagram, and I'll notice every few weeks it seems like there's a couple of people being added, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and I think it was 2 years ago when they did, maybe last year when they did the New Year's Eve performance.
Oh, wow. Okay, New Year's Eve performance on Rock New Year's Eve, for example, Dick Clark, something like that. Continue on.
Do you remember that?
I actually didn't get to go to that, but Teresa and I were just talking about it because Grant, one of my friends, was one of the artists who performed at that.
So it is such a cool program. Links to everything will be all over Purple Road. So you'll be able to find all about Joseph, Amplify, all of these different programs. So, I always kind of end up the shows. What's next? Where are you going next? What's your next plan?
Yeah, so I've been recording and putting out music as fast as I possibly can. And so there's a Fort Worth-based distributor called Smith Music, and DJ is a really great guy. He shows up to the mixers, and he really he makes a point to really encourage the local musicians here. And his advice to me was to put out a song every 4 to 6 weeks. And he told me that would benefit me when you look at the way some of these algorithms work for the streaming services. And so I am putting out a song every 4 weeks. I'm putting out something, and then once I have 10 songs, I'm gonna compile all of that and release it as an album. And yeah, just continue to promote those songs that I'm releasing, and trying to write songs that are even better. So, every time I put out something, every time I write something, celebrating that it got finished and released, and then trying to think, well, what could I do to, write something that touches on something different, or maybe is more well written, has a nicer melody, better mix, whatever it is. So, yeah, that's it. I'm trying to put out as much music as I possibly can, and hopefully people will connect with it and listen to it.
Well, I love that. And I also noticed a guitar right there.
Oh, this whole thing? Yeah.
Wow.
If you're on Purple Roads, you gotta play something. So we would love to hear something.
Sure. I'll play a song I wrote called 25.
Oh, wow.
This is a song that came out just a few weeks ago. I put it out on my 30th birthday.
Oh, wow. You're now furry free as I'm taping this right now, but I'm furry as I'm taping this. I just turned furry as I'm taping this episode of Road React. So, more power to you. So, you're 3 years older than me, Joseph. Wow. Continue on.
It's funny. It's a song about getting older, and I remember being told all the time, when you're in your 20s, it's the best time of your life, and these are the best years. And I remember thinking, my early 20s were kind of chaotic, and so I hope that wasn't my best. So I wrote a song about the joy of getting older, and it's funny. I played at that event in Emerald Bay in East Texas, and mostly older folks. And I played that song, and I told the story. And as soon as I was done, I heard this older voice yell out, "Do you got one for 75?" And so I'm working on that one, I guess. But this is 25.
Okay, makes sense. There we go. Okay, there we go.
Thank God I'm not 25 anymore.
That's good.
Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. I missed the flights out to New York, but I think that season's run its course. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. There's a voice that I can't ignore saying, don't run like you did before. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. Do you ever want what you can't have? Say a thing you can't take back. I promise if you have, you're not alone. Bow my head, begin to pray. I'm getting better every day at turning this old house into a home. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore.
That was a good song.
Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. A crack of light through an open door, slow dancing on our kitchen floor, thinking, thank God we're not 25. Thank God we're not 25. Thank God I'm not 25 anymore. Thanks.
Love it.
Yeah, Carrie, I agree with you. Proud of that.
Thank you.
I love it. In fact, I've been listening to it in the car. It's a great
Thank you.
song. How can we? Are you putting out notices when you put new songs out? Social media.
I do. Everything is Joe Patnev. My first, middle, and last name. JoePatnev. So at Joe Patnev for Instagram, Facebook, all that. JoePatnev.com. That's like an online business card. You can find all the music, and then Spotify, Joseph Neville. So I'd love to, hopefully have some new people hear some new songs. And,
We will send it
hopefully-
out there. It'll be all over. If you didn't get it right there, you'll get it through social media and everything that we do. I can't even tell you. Just a pleasure. I'm so glad that we met. It's been a pleasure
same.
talking to you. And we're going to work on some other things. So
Yes, please. It's so nice to meet you. I'm so thankful that we get to do this. So thank you for everything that you've done for letting me be a part of this. So thank you.
well, it's just been a pleasure. And we will have to catch up with you later and see where things go.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road.
That was Purple Roads Podcast, episode number 105. Joseph Neville, educator and musician. What do you think about this episode? It was amazing. Amazing episode, and what am I gonna say about it? No, lots of words. Anyway, without that man. So far, this episode was a success. Anyways, guys, that was the LJPCBM episode 1,720. Hope you enjoyed. There's gonna be another LJPCBM episode on Play Along video by Jason Plus, aka my Jesse Mack, on Boy and Friends Play Along on episode 130 on Gone Fishing. Coming up next, there will be a brand new episode of Dare Time on episode number 248 on not only Mexican restaurant food, but I'm also gonna eat something very fresh for a mix between the both Mexican restaurant food and pizza. But anyway, now excuse me, I gotta get ready for dinner because that's coming up next here on my main channel. And I gotta get ready for a reaction video to a play along video because that's something that we're going to do after this is over. So there you go on that. Till next time, suggest my baby. What LJPCBM, we're going to soon say out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I failed to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality, the one who gave the life that which is always happening, but I tried all the time. I ask, why me? Why was I the one to see things as I do under the moonlight and the sun? Perception is the question, and the giver holds the key.